is immutable. The money is
When the Genesis
decentralized.
locked to the edge of the mempool, we are decoding Bitcoin's signal in the noise. Privacy, self-custody, censorship resistance. Welcome to the revolution.
This is OnChain Revolution.
Welcome back to OnChain Revolution. My name is Yagobi, and I am your host for the show. We got a lot to get into today, guys. People are trying to figure out what is happening with Bitcoin and all of the markets, right? You see a lot of the markets going from gold, precious metals to the stock market and crypto as well, of course, pulling back. But people are trying to figure out where that money's going, right? Where is it going? Gold has pulled back significantly, about 6% right now. Silver is taking even a bigger hit, pulling back about 11% there, sitting at $75. But people are trying to figure out, where is the money? Is it on the sidelines, or, where is it? That is the question that everybody is asking. We have a lot to get into, like I mentioned. We're going to hit on, again, CZ just being, in the middle of all this drama on crypto Twitter. And then supposedly Binance has already started the purchasing of the 1 billion, is it $1 billion, I believe they said, of Bitcoin from their Safe Food Fund. So we'll look into that. Also, the government shutdown is not helping anybody. That is, it's a partially shut down right now, but there is some good news in terms of the government voting on the bills tomorrow. Tom Emmert, I believe, which is a part of the committee there, mentioned that they're going to be voting on getting things moving tomorrow. And then you have Mike Johnson kind of just commenting on it, realizing that, the Republicans really need to get the government going again. We're going to hit on Bitcoin and the performance that we've seen the past 4 months. First, 4-month consecutive red streak since 2018 and what that means, right? We're also going to get into the main topic of the show, of course, right? Which is, where Bitcoin is currently and what the setup is and what opportunities could come along the way. I think we all have to accept the fact that there's probably going to be, tough times ahead of us in the near future. But in the mid to maybe a little bit long term, we're going to take a look and, see what happened the last setup that was similar to this, and how there was a good amount of people that were able to buy Bitcoin cheap because of an opportunity of a market we'll get into. And most of you guys probably know what I'm talking about. But before we get into any of that stuff, I'm going to ask you guys to help me out and make sure that you guys subscribe to the YouTube channel. Hit that like for me, as it helps the algorithm, of course. And then on the X side, let's share this space. Let's get as many people in here as possible. I want to give a shout out to the abstract community out there, and then also X, of course, YouTube, Zora as well. So let's get straight into it, and also drop your comments in your comments and questions in the chat, and I will get to those, as the show goes on here. But let's take a look and get a pulse of the markets before we get into the main topic here. I'm going to pull up Bitcoin, and we can kind of take a look and see how it's performing, because Bitcoin is actually not performing too bad if you're looking at it comparatively to the rest of the asset classes, right? You can see that we did get down to the $74,000 mark over the weekend yesterday at about 9 p.m. Central, and we started to work our way up. So the start of the week is not bad so far for Bitcoin. And stocks are actually performing okay as well. You can see the S&P has rebounded a little bit, up 0.37%. You see NASDAQ pulling up 0.6%. The Dow Jones pulling up 0.8%. The Dixie is up, which is obviously not a good thing for risk-on assets, but that is where obviously the money is going, right? It's going back into the dollar a little bit. And then you see the Russell up 1%, which is a little shocking because that is their risk on asset class there. And then you go down to crypto and you see Bitcoin looking strong today, rebounding up 2.2%. And then you see Ethereum up 4% here. So when you compare that to gold and silver are continually getting decimated, right? What is up, Stan? Asking if Epstein is Satoshi. I don't know if it is, but we're going to hit on that as well, as it is one of the topics we're going to get into here. But yeah, so you can see the crypto market is actually bouncing back today. Does that have to do with Binance, fulfilling that commitment of using their Seifu funds to buy Bitcoin up? What is up? Smug Toshi, he says sup here. Yeah, that could be a part of it, to where Binance is buying up Bitcoin and it's creating a rally. But nevertheless, the crypto market is actually outperforming every other asset class today. So looking pretty decent, honestly, in terms of crypto in general. It's a good start to the week. Stocks, decent start. Precious metals are continually getting wrecked there. But let's get into the main topic here. The main topic is right here where it says, last time Bitcoin looked like this, huge opportunities followed. And what do I mean by that? I am pulling up the weekly chart for Bitcoin, and I am looking at the 50 EMA. The 50-day EMA, exponential moving average, is the indicator I'm using here. And if you go back, and you can even go back to before the last cycle, whenever it went into the bear market, and you can go back to 2 cycles ago, and you can see when Bitcoin makes a clear distinction of being under the 50 EMA and it stays under here, it really, makes a statement that we are in the bear market. And the first time that this happened consistently was around May of 2018. And it was a 347-day period before we broke back up above the 50 EMA. And when we did that, we stayed up here for a while and we had this COVID anomaly. And then you guys know what happened in 2020, 2021, and 2020. Well, I'll say 2020, 2021, right? That's whenever the bull market happened. Now, there was multiple opportunities heading up into the bull market, but they weren't as clear cut, right? It was more of, I would say, the Ethereum ecosystem was starting to build out. Some people took advantage of that and were able to get into some early projects. And, some of them benefited for sure because some of those projects were able to, continue on to build. And so that did show a little bit of a preview of what you can look for, right? You could look for a narrative that is starting to emerge, coming out of the bear market. And then you go into 2022 and, we had our bull market in 2021 with the manipulation of the double top there. People made a lot of money. And then the people that bought the top, a lot of retail, they got wrecked. We had Luna, FTX, all that stuff. And then we finally broke back below the 50 EMA, right? And when that happened and we stayed below it, it pretty much was a confirmation that we entered the next bear market here. And this bear market was a bit longer. You can compare it here, 347 days from the previous one to 441 here, which started the end of December in 2021, and it extended out until around the spring of 2023, which we all know what exploded during that period, right? So, basically this was a really tough period. If you guys remember, finishing out 2022, the end of 2022, not many people were paying attention, but that's when Casey created the first inscription. And then you started 2023 and the Bitcoin ecosystem was still pretty, new, not a bunch of information coming out, but you had Pepe that was one of the first meme coins of the next phase class of meme coins to really have a significant effect on the overall crypto market. And so that is kind of that first push up. And then if you get through, the winter of 2023, and then you go into the spring of 2023, that's whenever people started to really talk about Bitcoin Ordinals, and you got into the Bitcoin fungibles, BRC20s. And in my opinion, that was really when things started to take off and people were starting to make money. But why am I bringing this up? Because this was the moment, in my opinion, that was the next meta or narrative. And there were so many people that left in this period and they stopped paying attention because, it was the bear market. There wasn't obvious opportunities to make money. And it was just a tough time, right? So if you believed in crypto during that time, it was really tough to continually hang in there. And, but if you did and you experienced this, then you got to see kind of like this mini bull market and you were rewarded for paying attention. Now, the people that won the most here, though, and this is where the biggest opportunity comes, in my opinion, is you're able to find where this money-making opportunity is, and it's created out of whether it's the Bitcoin ecosystem or another ecosystem. But it's when Bitcoin is not, extremely thriving. Because if you look at the price of Bitcoin at this time period, you're looking at Bitcoin at like 20,000, right? And at the kind of like these local tops over here, you're looking at maybe 25,000, right? Then it jumps up here to about 28,000 once people start to get excited about the ecosystem. But a smaller percentage of people that really made the most out of this was the people that were able to buy ordinals cheap, sell them into Bitcoin, and get Bitcoin cheap at this period, and then hold it as the cycle continued on. And these are people like maybe they're ordinals collection founders, or they're just really good traders during this period and that traded Bitcoin fungibles. And, they made the most out of it, right? And they held Bitcoin all the way up till, let's say getting back to like 70K, right? And it was just constantly taking advantage of this kind of Bitcoin ecosystem explosion and then getting, back into Bitcoin and holding that on the way up. And then we got to 2024. In the beginning of 2024 is when the Solana meme coin season started. Right. So another opportunity kind of coming out of the bear market into another, opportunity after the Bitcoin ecosystem. So some people, that came out of this opportunity were able to rotate here and then buy Bitcoin again from their profits here and then hold it as it got to 100,000. Now, that would have been, playing it perfectly. But I bring all this up because now we're in this situation to where we have broken below the 50 EMA. And this happened around, November, like the beginning of November. I believe really when the bear market was kicked off was October 10th. But, if you want to just use this metric as use this as an example, then you can say early November. So November 10th, right? And if we were to use the same amount of days that the bear market lasted, this last bear market cycle, 441 days, that would take us to January of 2027, right? So that's kind of a long period here. Now, I don't necessarily think it's going to take this long. We could have a shorter one like the previous one here that was 347 days, or it could be longer depending on, how it plays out. But, I would probably lean a little bit more on the shorter side just because this cycle has been so different. And, there's many things that have like changed things up in terms of previous data points, not necessarily hitting perfectly, right? I see there's a couple more comments here. Chidi says, "What's up, Yago B?" And then myself says, "I smell lots of opportunities." Yeah, so do I. But, it's not going to be so obvious at this moment, right? Because it's doom and gloom right now. But the important part is, are you going to be able to catch the narrative, right? because the narrative is what pulls us out of the bear market. Is it going to be the Bitcoin ecosystem again? It could be. There's a lot of things that are building, in the Bitcoin ecosystem, kind of behind the scenes, because, there's not necessarily like a ton of bullishness going on with every part of the Bitcoin ecosystem. There's not one part that's really bullish or anything, but you can say that across the entire crypto space, right? Like ETH NFTs are not thriving. Solana meme coins, I feel like, is a very kind of almost smoke and mirrors. It's very, just fake it till you make it type of liquidity there. There's no sustainability with like those market caps, right? So it seems like the same group of people, and so even though it seems like some of these tokens are thriving, it's not really the case, right? So if you want to beat on the Bitcoin ecosystem, you can do that and say whatever, but there is people that are continually building, and when the time is right, I do think that they're going to be a part of the rise back up for coming out of the bear market. Now, is it going to be the main narrative? I can't tell you, right? But there's going to be something that is going to pull us out of this. Now, we are pretty early here, though, as you can see. So we're, comparatively like in this region, right? So we could technically kind of fake out to kind of say that we're going to come out. Again, anything is on the table, because as you guys know, with Bitcoin and crypto, it can be volatile, it can be crazy, but I really do think, we do have we're going to have some sort of a bear market that's going to where we have more pain in the near term. Now, the biggest point and the biggest thing I think that we have to learn from this right here and this right here is to make sure that, and this is not financial advice, this is something I definitely am kicking myself for, is make sure whatever opportunity is going to come up out of here is to get back into Bitcoin as it is in a cheaper state, right? And if that means that Bitcoin gets back to 60,000 and, this ecosystem starts to thrive and it becomes pretty easy to make money, then for me, going back into Bitcoin makes the most sense. Now, you could say, well, why not get back into Ethereum or Solana, some of these other blue chips? And, you can do that, obviously, right? That is an option. But if you look at what happened during this period, I feel like Bitcoin was the best opportunity to go back into, whenever people were making money from the ecosystem here. So that is what I'm looking at for kind of like this opportunity. It's not a near-term situation, but it's something that you got to pay attention to. You just got to keep your eye on what is happening, all of the kind of narratives and metas. Maybe it's AI, maybe it is the Bitcoin ecosystem, just, with these upgrades with BRC 2.0 or the runes ecosystem. There's a lot of scaling, builders that are building scaling solutions, whether it's using ICP or using EVM, to kind of make these layer one assets more versatile. And then also, we don't know what's going to happen with kind of the core group of developers for Bitcoin, as there's been some crazy news that has come out. So this is the biggest thing I'm looking at right now, guys. I know that you might be like, well, that is some time out, some ways out here, but as long as you're locked in and you're paying attention still, then I do think that you'll be able to catch whatever narrative it is and remember to go back into the most solid asset in our space whenever it's cheap, because then you'll benefit and be able to take those profits whenever it's rising back up, right? And so that's what we got right now. I am going to hop into some news as well, as we do got a ton of news that is happening. But in fact, before we do that, though, I do want to hit on kind of where Bitcoin is heading today and hit on some of the alts, right? That I think that's important. I know that Bitcoin's actually kind of bouncing back today, but the alts got kind of wrecked over the weekend. But let's kind of check and see what's happening here in our space. On the hour chart, we are seeing Bitcoin look strong. There's an extension here with the MACD. It looks pretty strong for Bitcoin. We have been in the stochastics, the overbought territory over here for looks since about 2 a.m. Central, right? So not too bad. So we have this continuation and this momentum happening. Are we going to be able to break back above 80,000? Right? That's the next price point that we got to break back above. And I mean, it looks pretty good right now, but I just, with everything going on right now, with the government shutdown, sentiment being bad, I just wouldn't, put too much confidence in us having a continuation up. So, getting back above 80,000 to me is going to be hard, even though we're really close. And if we do get back above it, I wouldn't be shocked if we quickly retreated and got back below. So I'm looking at Bitcoin's trajectory here in the next couple of months as like an opportunity to, get Bitcoin cheaper for one, and then look to see where's that next narrative going to be, and honestly hoping that Bitcoin continually gets cheaper. That is where my mind is at. And so for the rest of today, if it does break above 80, I wouldn't be shocked. But again, I wouldn't be shocked if it quickly pulled back below. Let's take a look at the 4-hour here for Bitcoin. The 4-hour just started the buy pressure session for the MACD. You see the fast line kind of starting to point to the upside here. The stochastics just crossed over the overbought territory here. So 4-hour looks pretty good too, right? So who knows? Maybe we do have some continuation of momentum, but we would need some headlines that are really going to be in our favor to really sustain this momentum as well. Stan says, in the channel's opinion, has the U.S. administration failed crypto as of today? Thanks. Honestly, I do feel like they have, right? In a couple of ways. I feel like the administration has failed it first for infrastructure. They haven't really moved the needle in terms of getting infrastructure further along. And I feel like they're really trying to please the banks. And, it's not looking good, right? We did get stablecoin infrastructure kind of like, through, but they're still talking about stablecoin, because there's two different, regulations with stablecoin. There's like a certain amount below. I can't remember exactly the amount. What's up, ApeSap? Benji, long time, says GM. But so, and then we have like the larger stablecoin regulations for larger amounts, right? And I think that's where the banks are really trying to have more control over. So then you go to just how the crypto and digital asset market has performed overall. And man, I would say it's been a pretty big disappointment, honestly. I hope that changes, but we'll see. Mice Elf says, Adam back in the Epstein files. Dude, like, it is crazy how much like Bitcoin has been referenced in the Epstein files. Also, Epstein in emails saying that he's met with founders of Bitcoin. There's just a lot of stuff. And is that bad for Bitcoin long term? I don't think it is long term, but short term, it definitely kind of has a reputation like hit, right? But yeah, keep the comments coming, guys. ASAP Jim Benji says GM. All right, let's continue this breakdown with Bitcoin here. So the 4-hour looks pretty good for Bitcoin, but again, like I said, I have my doubts, right? Even though the technical analysis looks pretty good for Bitcoin, the daily looks like it's starting to try to break down the sell pressure here. But we are hanging down here with the stochastics for quite some time, actually, since the 20th. We've been in oversold since the 20th of January for Bitcoin. That's pretty nasty. MACD does look like it's starting to break down, though, and looks like it wants to come up. But again, I can't see us having any type of sustainability to the upside, not with everything that's happening right now. And then I know we looked at the weekly already because going over the main topic here, but I mean, look at this, man. This was the setup that I really liked. It was the one that I was hoping for, really. And obviously just completely fell apart. You see, the MACD just kind of opened back up here. The fast line just really kind of going south, and then stochastics deciding to go back under oversold, right? So yeah, I don't know. I mean, we have jobs reports Friday, and we'll see if that helps at all. But we got to get momentum going from a sentiment perspective, but also just from just like crypto in general. Bitcoin and crypto in general right now. I mean, look at crypto Twitter. Crypto Twitter looks like just cesspool right now in terms of toxicity, right? You got like all the large accounts really attacking CZ again. And this is pretty crazy, like how much he's being attacked right now. I'm not standing up for him, but it's, they're talking about how they want him in jail and, all these things. And I feel like the pressure is getting to him, right? Because he's coming out on their version of Spaces on the Binance website, which is called Square, I believe. And he's saying, he believes the Bitcoin super cycle is canceled now due to FUD, which is so funny because usually these huge figures, they always talk about ignoring the FUD and all this stuff. But and I almost feel like he made that statement towards like Leonidas and Dog and in the Bitcoin ecosystem, because he said the Bitcoin super cycle is probably going to be canceled to FUD, but we'll see how that plays out. Nevertheless, guys, you got to remember though, as much as it looks like that times are bad right now, the rise back up is the most important part. And that was the biggest thing that I learned from, coming out of this last bear market. And I wish that I just was more locked in during those opportunities, because I feel like that was the play is coming out of the bear market and realizing it, right? So we definitely have to do that and pay attention. That's what we'll do on this channel. We'll work together, we'll learn together. It's all about, being present and paying attention to the things that are easily, passed over, right? But yeah, so the weekly does not look good for Bitcoin here. Ethereum, honestly, like it's going to be the same situation, guys. It just, ETH is probably worse situation. The hour looks good, bounced back up today. If you look at Ethereum, it is bounced back actually better. It's bounced back almost double of what Bitcoin has, right? So that's interesting. What would be really weird too is if ETH just kind of went off on its own thing, because I'm seeing some metrics with ETH in terms of transaction volume that usually doesn't happen during bear markets, and we'll get into that in a little bit here. But yeah, on the hour, ETH, it looks pretty decent here actually. Like I said, bouncing back almost double of what Bitcoin is from a percentage standpoint, which it's easier, right? Because it's a smaller price point. And then you're seeing the 4 hour just kind of getting started here for ETH, the daily. But again, if Bitcoin starts to like really dump, then it's really just going to follow that same trajectory there. Let's take a look at the crypto bubbles. The crypto bubbles bounce back across the board. Wow, some of these are pretty significant too. You got Stacks bouncing back about 12.5% here. River up 24%, Stable up 34%, 34.5%, XDC pulling up about 15%, Morpho up 15%. Man, and they did get beat down pretty bad over the weekend. Hyperliquid. So Hyperliquid, we got some news about Hyperliquid we're going to get into, which is really, really cool, because I think it's going to really continually push their narrative of being one of the stronger tokens to get into, probably in the bear market as well, right? They're up 12.7%. Virtual's up about 7.5%, which makes a lot of sense. So a lot of those AI autonomous tokens, they actually did launch on Virtuals, I believe. So they've been getting a lot of attention, probably getting fees as well. You see, Stan says Virtuals a continued play or dead. So I think that, as long as this AI autonomous economy narrative continues, then I think they will be. Look, I mean, their market cap is still pretty solid. They're looking at, they're a little bit above 400 million. They moved up one in their rank, but they needed this. I feel like they needed to kind of get back into the spotlight here. So this is definitely good for them. You're seeing Wolfi up 8%. What else do we got here in the top 100? Cardano up 4%. AVAX up almost 4% here. So good push back up for alts in the top 100. Across the board, I would say probably about a 4 to 7%, right? And then you have your anomalies here that kind of stick out a little bit higher. Stacks, though, that's definitely interesting to see. Stacks, I feel like Stacks is one of those tokens that just really benefits from being, in this just being like that almost a derivative to Bitcoin, right? We talk about like the Bitcoin layer 2s. Merlin was kind of benefiting at one point like that. Stacks lately, though, and Stacks gets a lot of support from like OGs, Bitcoin OGs, right? So let's see. Patapoo says the new AI meta is Clonch. Yeah, Clonch is the launch pad that I believe some of these AI tokens are starting to launch on as well. And the market cap kind of jumped up there. He says tokens released by AI on AI created by Launchpad. Yeah. So it's definitely something that is I saw their market cap. Clonch market cap actually was looking really strong as well. Here we go. We see Mice Elf says CZ isn't even the CEO anymore. The government took over Binance. Yeah, but a lot of people just really correlate it so closely to him, right? And I feel like he does have like an influence over Binance, whether he's not pulling the strings directly or what. But he's still doing the spaces on their platform and a lot of things, right? All right, let's get into the top 200 here. Top 200. Let's see what's anything sticking out. SPX meme coin here. Up 11.4%. Pippin, the AI meme coin, pulling up 8% there. What else? We got Sonic, the EVM, fast EVM blockchain, pulling up about almost 9%. Monad up 4.2%. Fartcoin up 4%, which is always a good thing to see Fartcoin bouncing back. Dog Whiff up about 6% here, right? And then what else we got? Cheems. Cheems is a meme coin on BSC, up 8.8%. And I think there's like a rivalry between Dog, the Bitcoin Rune Dog community, and Cheems right now because of the whole CZ thing. Dog's community really wants to, pass the market cap of Cheems, which they're not right now. I mean, Dog's kind of taking a hit, right? It's back close to 100 million right now. All right, so that is the alt market there. Let me pull that down. By the way, you guys probably noticed I am not wearing a hat. Just wanted to change things up. I had the new intro as well for the show. Hope you guys like that. Changing things up a little bit, right? Trying to get my own kind of personal feel back in. I think I've maybe not worn a hat once since we've been doing the live stream. So this is probably the first time you guys see me with actual hair here, which I'm starting to kind of lose a little bit, but I'm not too worried about it. All right, let's see what else we got here. Let's get into some news, right? So the government partial shutdown. How long will it last this time? This is, I think, this is part of one of the main reasons I think the markets overall are struggling, right, with the stock market as well as crypto, but crypto today's bounced back, right? We have, I think it's Maria from CNBC. She reported Majority Whip Tom Emmer providing a detailed timeline for when the House will vote on the funding bill to end the partial government shutdown. So if you go to this post and you listen to it, basically he mentions that they're going to vote tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. Eastern, I believe. That's the first vote. And then they're going to start voting on the bill packages later in the day. So February 3rd is really, tomorrow is hopefully the day that they really get a lot of work done. and get the government back going, right? And then you see Speaker Mike Johnson start to have a lot of pressure. He says after Democrats caused the longest shutdown in U.S. history last year, Republicans are not going to let them put the American people through that chaos. Again, I'm not so sure how much weight I would put behind his words, to be honest. I feel like he's just a talker. But at the end of the day, he does know that the Republicans do need to make this shutdown as short as possible. So hopefully he really does motivate. Now, I think there's one thing that we have going against us, right? In terms of trying to get, when I say us, is we want this government shutdown to stop. And it is the fact that the Democrats are probably not going to budge too much with the DHS funding. Now, what does that mean for the Republican side, right? Are they going to give in? Because they might have to, right? They might have to really just compromise here and get this bill passed with the budget, the new budget, and get the government going again. Because until then, if it gets prolonged, I do believe that all markets, including crypto, is going to continually bleed. And that is never a good thing, right? And you can see Polymarket here has a 99% chance that the government shutdown is going to last 4+ days. 4+ days, right? That is, man. And then you look at 5+ days, which, I think the first official day was the 30th, right? So you go from the 30th to the 31st, the 1st, the 2nd. Well, there might be only 30 days in January. Let me see real quick. Let's see. Yeah, so 31. Okay. So you had 1, 2, 3. We're at day 3 now. So if we get to 5+, that would take us into the 4th. We got a 51% chance of that happening. And so if we start to see this grow, so tomorrow I think is going to be the biggest day, is when they start to, vote on these things, right? Is the Democrats going to be, really hard nosed? And they know that if this gets prolonged, it's not good for the Republicans for, heading into the midterms as well, right? So I think they want to prolong the situation, but I hope really they can all just come together and get the shutdown completed and get things rolling again, so we can maybe have some positive sentiment in markets again. I don't even know if how much that's going to help, to be honest. All right. H2 Sapien says, GM. He says, let's go. What is up? Welcome back to the show. All right. Let's take a look here for the next bit of news we're going to get into here, man. This is pretty devastating. As you can see, 70 billion wiped from crypto markets. That's pretty crazy, right? So 70 billion wiped from crypto markets. The total crypto market cap is 2.51 trillion. Now, that used to be like Bitcoin's total market cap. Now we're looking at all of crypto is down to 2.51 trillion, which is horrible, right? That is not good. Man, definitely looking, the strength of crypto does not look great right now. But like I said, you have to look at it, in my opinion, like an opportunity, because, this is going to be discounts eventually. That doesn't mean go mortgage your house and do crazy things, because that's what crazy people do. But if you're in a position to be, and you truly have conviction, then, there's going to be a lot of stuff on sale. Solana is below $100. $100. I mean, that's crazy, or it was. It's probably back above now, because today the entire market bounced back. But let's take a look here at these liquidations also. So 5 billion in crypto liquidations recorded over the past 4 days. Ugh, I mean, this is pretty nasty. You can go, back from like the 1st to the 28th, right? And man, the the 31st was the one that really killed us, right? And we haven't seen liquidations like this since October 10th, right? So, and look at the longs, man. I mean, this is worrisome because, people don't want to let go of the potential bull run, it seems like still, right? And I mean, this many longs being liquidated is absolutely crazy. Shorts are still getting liquidated as well, but not as bad here, right? So I just, leverage in general during these times is super, super dangerous, right? Super, super dangerous. Dr. Thomas, lovely man. He says, "Hey, dude, good afternoon. Track Lord Tom here. What is up, Tom?" He says, "It's been a rough time for Bitcoin." Yeah, tell me about it, brother. Time to double down on building for the future. Absolutely. He says, "Good to see you out here keeping it real while things aren't so hype." Yeah, man. I mean, at the end of the day, that's what you got to do, right? You got to be honest and do your best, right? I mean, that's all we can do. Is all we can do. All right. Let's see here. Here's some more not so great news, but we got to get into it here. Where is that chart here? I do with that? I know here it is right here. I just kind of moved it around. All right, so this one's crazy, but the positive, the silver lining here, in my opinion, is how many months consecutive can we go red, right? Because eventually, what goes up must come down, but what goes down must come up, right? Eventually as well. So this is the first time that Bitcoin has hit 4 consecutive months of red returns since 2018. You look here in 2018, it did it 5 months in a row, going from August to December, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 actually. Because you look at 2019, in the first month of 2019 was also a red month, and then we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 months of green for Bitcoin. So does that mean that we are close to being done with the negative months, negative return months for Bitcoin? I mean, it could be. If you're looking here, the last 3 months obviously red, negative. The first month of this year red. Starting off February red. Do we finish it red? And if we do, that would give us 5 months, right? And then 6 was the total for that period. And I think that's the record. Because if you look through some of these other years, yeah, so 6 looks to be the record here. So, that means, looking at it here, we're probably getting close to, being done with the negative red months, right? Do we get 2 more, and then we could start possibly having the green months happen in the spring? That could be something that happens, right? I mean, you never know, right? And I'm not saying that like we're gonna have like this bull run or nothing like that. I truly think we're gonna go through a pretty prolonged number of days without having a true bull run. But again, we'll lead into some sort of meta that pulls us out eventually. But that doesn't mean that we don't have moments of thrusting up, right? And plus, we are also kind of learning what this new, I guess, activity looks like with institutions permanently being here. So, this gives me some hope because I don't think we, have 8 negative red months in a row, right? So. All right. Some other stuff here that has come up in the news here. This one is not a fun one either, but as you can see here, Epstein Files has a lot of Bitcoin references. Is this bad for Bitcoin's long term, or Bitcoin's reputation long term is what I meant there. Bad for Bitcoin long term. And this is, I feel like this email as well is not like too informative. It just talks about, having some sort of, creation of 2 currencies and to this gentleman named Rafat, right? And I guess they're assuming that they're one of the creators of Bitcoin. I'm not sure what Cointelegraph means by this, but it says a 2016 email from Jeffrey Epstein claims he had spoken to some of the founders of Bitcoin, right? And if you go through the files, though, you'll see there's a lot of references to Adam Back, Jeffrey Epstein emailing Adam Back, trying to email Satoshi to get him to meet up multiple times. And Satoshi denied a lot, almost all of them, I believe. And he never met up with them, either ignored the email or said that he wasn't going to meet up with them. So is this bad for Bitcoin's reputation? Is it bad for Bitcoin? Short-term, mid-term, long-term. Short-term, it's not good for Bitcoin, right? Because people right now, anybody that is mentioned in the Epstein files, it's giving them a really bad rep, or some, social mentioning of them is not good. It's all negative. And I think Bitcoin's going through that a little bit right now. Now, I do think that it does shake it off, because Bitcoin is a digital currency. It wasn't started by Epstein, started by Satoshi. And the more that you read into these, you do realize that he just wanted to be a part of, the creators. He wanted to get really deep into the founders of Bitcoin, or the creator of Bitcoin, or the, a single person like Satoshi and whoever that is. But there are other documents, that do show that he, got to some of the Bitcoin core people in terms of trying to meet up with them. And, there's questions about integrity, and did they intentionally not scale Bitcoin based on maybe what Epstein wanted, and all these things. It's speculative, right? You don't know. All you can go off is the fact that, like, he did have some interaction with Core, right? And then what happens to Bitcoin Core today? How are they going to respond to this? I think that is interesting as well, right? But I do think mid and long term, it doesn't get, I don't think it has too much of an effect, honestly. Tom says this was way back in 2016. It's not really going to amount to anything, I wouldn't think. But good excuse for a dump short term. I feel like we have been in a bear market since January 2025 at this point. Yeah, I mean, January 2025 definitely kicked off a disappointing post-halving year. And if you look back at how 2024 played out, you could say that could have been just like a poor bull run year, even though it was a halving year, and that typically doesn't happen. But you got to remember too that a lot of people didn't feel like they experienced any of the bull run, because in 2025 it was like a complete year of empathy, right? There was no euphoria, and we usually get that whenever there's a bull market year, right? So appreciate the comment there. All right, so yeah, so I mean, I don't think it affects Bitcoin midterm, long term, short term. Sure, like you mentioned, Tom, I think it does give excuse for dumps there. All right, well, let's get some positive news. I feel like it's been all negative here, and this is kind of positive, but it depends on how you look at it, right? Like BitMine purchased another 41,788 ETH, so that kind of averages out close to $100 million last week. MicroStrategy purchased another 855 Bitcoin at 75.3 million. So roughly around the same amount that they purchased in terms of dollar amounts. You got 25 million difference there. But you can see here in this article, it mentions that, right? In the past week, this is from Tom Lee. He mentioned that they acquired 41,788 Ethereum, and BitMine has been steadily buying Ethereum, as we view this pullback as attractive, given the strengthening fundamentals. In our view, the price of ETH is not reflective of the high utility of ETH and its role as the future of finance. Now, man, I feel like with a lot of price predictions that he's had recently, it sucks to see that Tom Lee has really just been completely wrong about Ethereum's price projections, right? I mean, he was talking about end of January, $7,000 to $10,000 per ETH. And, that's that's just not what we're used to whenever Tom Lee is forecasting, right? And so I just don't know if his reputation is going to take a hit. I mean, I think it does, obviously, right? But the good thing is they are buying, right? They're continually buying, but I feel like they kind of have to. Now, this is one of the metrics that I was talking to you guys about with Ethereum. You can see here it shows Ethereum 2026 transactions surging higher. So this is really weird. You go back to 2018 when ETH was pretty new, right? And you see the crypto winter, so the bear market, right? You see the transactions kind of matching the sentiment in the bear market here. So transactions are going down, the price of ETH is going down, and then you see it again here in 2022, kind of the end of 2021, where price action's going down, and then transactions are going down. Now this is where it starts to differ, and now we haven't fully gone into the bear market in terms of like super aggressiveness. If you compare it to how 2022 played out, right? Well, if you were to start in late 2021, right? It just kind of, it was up and down, and in the beginning of 2022 didn't feel like necessarily we were officially fully there. And then whenever Luna and all that stuff started happening, that's whenever it got aggressive and started push to the downside. So we have yet to have that type of moment, I believe. But you can see here that the transaction volume is definitely jumping, surging higher. So Ethereum is in an interesting place because institutions are bullish on Ethereum. They all want to stake, and they're waiting in queue. But when we start to see this really start to crash down aggressively, are we going to see this follow it? Because it's pushing up pretty aggressively right now in terms of transaction volume. So something to keep your eye on for sure. Myself says ETH still has more TVL than all the chains. Yeah, I mean it does, right? And it has that because it was the first. It was the creator of DeFi, right? And so keeping liquidity on chain, Ethereum was the first to really have that, and reasons to keep liquidity on chain and capital on chain, and that is just growing more and more. So in that aspect, I love Bitcoin. I think the Bitcoin ecosystem is actually going to do huge things in the future. But I also think that Ethereum is going to be a huge, huge opportunity as well as time goes on. Right now, it might not be as easy to see. All right. So let's get into the CZ drama here, right? CZ calls a Bitcoin super cycle due to FUD, and then Binance initiates purchase of the Seifu funds, right? Let's see where that is though. So this was super interesting. I know I hit on this earlier, but the fact that like CZ, it seems like he's getting, the pressure is starting to get to him, right? And before, I felt like it wasn't as obvious in past cycles. Like he seemed like he was able to push through that, right? And so it's going to be interesting to see if something happens, first of all, with all this stuff, because people are calling for, him to go back to jail and all these crazy things. I don't know what I did with that one. Going back to jail and all that stuff, which I don't think is going to happen. I think that he has pretty, good relationships with the current administration. I think there's some stuff that probably has happened, in terms of that relationship that we don't know about. But, will the pressure get to, maybe some of these regulatory entities? The SEC's kind of backed off with crypto, saying that, the CFTC kind of needs to take that role. But we'll see what happens. And also, like, there was some people in crypto and Web3 that looked at CZ as, a positive figure in the space, right? So right now, what I'm seeing on crypto Twitter is it's almost all negative, right? So for this situation to be, where he's just getting all this pressure kind of thrown at him, does he crack? Does he go away for a while? He might. And if that happens, we'll see if he comes back. But, this is definitely seems to kind of get under his skin a little bit right now. I can't find that one right now, but like we talked about that earlier a little bit, but we'll hit on this one. This one's very, very interesting. Hyperliquid creating smart contracts for predictions and other collateralized outcomes. So you see right here, Hyperliquid from their X account, they posted here, it says Hypercore will support outcome trading. HIP4 outcomes are fully collateralized contracts that settle within a fixed range. They are a general purpose primitive that are useful for applications such as prediction markets and bounded option like instruments. There has been extensive user demand in both of these areas, and builders will likely think of novel applications as well. Outcomes bring non-linearity, dated contracts, and an alternative form of derivative trading that does not involve leverage or liquidations. The outcome primitive expands the expressivity of Hypercore while composing with other primitives such as portfolio margin and the Hyper EVM. Outcomes are a work in progress and currently only being tested on testnet. Canonical markets based on objective settlement sources will be deployed once technical development is complete. Canonical markets will be denominated in USDH. Pending user feedback, the infrastructure will be extended to permissionless deployment. So this is basically smart contracts for predictions market style markets, right? Like whenever there's people that are putting up liquidity on each side, the smart contract's going to hold the liquidity on chain. So this could be used for many things, right? So the leverage part of it is not going to be integrated into this new standard that they have, right? But this could be used for so many different things. And the fact that they are, innovating here, I think it just gives much more kind of merit to Hyperliquid and reasons for people to want to put Hyperliquid in their portfolio, right? Especially as it gets cheaper whenever we're in the bear market. All right, what's up, Varying Viewpoint? Man, it's been a while. Welcome back to the channel. Varying Viewpoint says, not in a bear market. Bitcoin tanked, but Bitcoin dominance went sideways all weekend. When we enter a bear market, Bitcoin dominance rockets up, meaning alts tank. That didn't happen. So I agree with what you're saying in terms of Bitcoin dominance. Let's actually pull that up. So I have this up right now. And as you mentioned, right? Like it did go up right here, kind of over the weekend. This is the daily, right? Let's actually pull up the weekly because I feel like that gives a pretty good, gauge of how dominance is looking, right? So we had dominance kind of coming down here in June, so the summertime. But what you're talking about is whenever dominance really kind of skyrockets, right? And people start to sell their alts into Bitcoin. Right? Whether that's like in May. So this was kind of like going into the bear market, right? You see Bitcoin dominance just kind of going up here. And then December of 2021. So it wasn't as aggressive, but you could see this is kind of, where's that 2021 at right here? I guess you would consider this area right here. Yeah. So, and then we had it come down here. And then this is whenever there's a lot of people saying that December 27th, around this period, is whenever the bear market officially started in 2021. And then you went up here, selling your alts into it. And then it got really aggressive during this period. And if you look here, this is whenever Luna and all of the kind of black swan events started to happen, right? So this makes sense to what you're saying. But, you have to remember, too, that we're not deep into it. That doesn't mean that we haven't started yet, right? Kind of like the late December moments. But I'm curious, Varying Viewpoint, do you think that we're going to have like an aggressive push up for Bitcoin in the near term? We obviously didn't have euphoria And that's why a lot of people feel like we, are in this, we still have this bull market ahead of us, right? But you have to see, like, look back and see, like, we've gone through like the amount of days that are similar for like a bull market and kind of heading into the bear market. I personally think that we did start the bear market, but I don't necessarily think it's going to be, the same length as the previous bear market, which was around 400 and something days, right? So a little over a year and a couple months. And that's if you want to be technical. Some people say, well, the bear market didn't really start until Luna collapsed and all that stuff. But I count whenever I use the 50 EMA and when it breaks down below it. Varying says, yes, ISM printed 52.6 today, the first time over 50 since 2022. Look, I mean, I'm not saying that it's completely off the table or out of the question, because like I mentioned, this cycle has been completely different compared to, previous bull runs, right? And, or previous cycles and how they played out. Institutions are here. If you look at gold, and whenever the ETF started for gold, it really changed the flow of the cycle for gold too. So that could be something that happens with Bitcoin as well, right? So definitely, look. I hope you're right. I really do hope you're right with that. Let's talk about the Bitcoin ecosystem a little bit here. There is a Ordinals launch that is happening today. Let me pull up this. So HIAP, which was a part of the Ordinal support desk, is launching the Dreamers collection on Bitcoin, right? Interesting timing, with everything that's happening, but I actually respect it, right? Because I feel like the Bitcoin builders and Ordinals founders, they whenever they feel like it's the right time to launch, they'll do it, right? So the Dreamers, it looks like phase 2 is going to begin here in about 5 hours and 18 minutes. So if you're a part of an alpha group, you can, try to get one of these Dreamers phases, right? And then you can get it cheaper. And then 6 hours and 31 minutes from now, you get the guaranteed mint here. It jumps up to about double the price. And then first come, first serve is about 30 minutes after that. And then it jumps up 0.0003 from that price. And then public, it opens up in 9 hours. So 9 hours and 31 minutes. And that's the most expensive price there, where it's 0.0012. Of course, do your own research with this, but I got to, respect these Ordinals founders. And look, I mean, is he going to make money from this if it mints out? Of course. But, all Ordinals, for the most part, there are a couple free mints here and there, but this is interesting. And it looks like the art is very much similar to like the Cause art, if you know Cause the artist. So I think it looks pretty cool here. Now, again, do your own research on this mint, check it out, and kind of make that decision for yourself, right? Outside of that, not much else happening in the Bitcoin ecosystem right now. I am going to be meeting up with some of the people in the, I would say, Track ecosystem, the NAT ecosystem. I have a meeting with Big Noodle and Alpay later today. So I am going to cover some of that, which should be fun. I think NAT, the way they do NAT is really, really cool. And, I did put out a video that covers ALU, that Ordinal collection, as well as hit on some market updates yesterday. If you go to my YouTube channel, OnChain Revolution, you can see that video there, or you can just go to at OnChain Rev on X, and you can see the video in the feed there as well. All right. Now going to the trenches here, there is one thing I want to talk about a little bit here, because Patapu talked about the AI autonomous bots that are happening on Base, which I think is a really cool thing. But I feel like there's a trenches problem, and we've all known this for a while. When something actually really cool comes out, right? Like this narrative about, you know, the AI autonomous bots and the AI autonomous bot economies. There's just these mass deployers that come in, and I feel like they ruin it, right? I use GMGN just to kind of see, like, you know, what's being deployed here. But I mean, you can just see it becomes like a Solana effect, right? You see the Claude DX here. I mean, all these, none of them have any type of sustainability. And so people that are hearing about these AI autonomous bot tokens, they come in here, and if they don't know how it works, and a lot of them will just buy in. And look, I mean, two of the same token here and here. So be careful, guys, when you are looking at these. And it typically starts to happen after a meta's ran a bit, right? And I just don't know if that's something that's ever going to be fixable in our space. When the overall markets are better, it's definitely a better situation. But there is just so many people that are just, you know, across the world that just deploy all these tokens, whether it's through Banker or you know, however they're deploying them, and they're just trying to get people that don't know any better and then dump on them. So just be very, very careful whenever you're trying to get into these autonomous bots. But let's kind of take a look here at how some of them are doing. Because, you know, Claunch that Patty Poo was talking about earlier is definitely one that has been benefiting. Let me get into the base ecosystem here. All right, let's take a look here. So Molt was one of the AI autonomous tokens that really started to take off about 4 days ago. It launched, and it is sort of a, you know, it's a social media kind of, almost kind of like a Reddit platform. But this thing, if you look at this, I mean, this is how you know you're not in a bullish market, because you can look at kind of how high this thing got up and then where it is now. I mean, look at this thing. This thing got to, like, I want to say almost $100 million market cap, and it's only been live for 4 days, and now we're sitting at 35 million, right? So it's already pulled back about 60%, right? But, you know, this is one of the stronger ones still in terms of overall market cap. And if we go back here, you see some of these new ones, and this one's only been here for like 21 hours. It's at 1 million. And then you look at Claunch. This is the one that Patty Poo was talking about here. You go into it, it's sitting at 23 million. Now, this one does look pretty strong considering that, you know, how long has it been around? So 2 days. But, you know, be careful, because even with this one, like any of them right now, like this narrative has been running for, I would say, about a week and a half now. And so, you know, how can they be sustainable? The way that they can be sustainable is if these autonomous bots are starting to really generate income, right? So Claunch is generating income, right? Because it's a launch pad. So these autonomous bots can, and it's only for these autonomous bots, right? So when they launch a token on Claunch, they have to pay the fee. So this is something that could, you know, actually have some sustainability, right? But of course, like I always say, do your own research with all this stuff. But this is one that, you know, you got to look at the fundamentals behind it, right? Is there any revenue that they're generating? Because people will be bullish if, you know, these tokens actually have bots that are generating revenue. All right, let's take one more quick look here in this area here. Claude was one. This was the one that got everything started. It's sitting, I mean, it's bounced back some. It's sitting at 14.5 million. But again, this was one that got to, like, I think 50 million, and it's sitting at 14.5. So, you know, just be careful out there, guys. You know, do your research on them. What I look for is there any revenue that's being generated by these bots? And, you know, if there is, that gets me bullish. So I do think that that's the opportunity for that space, for that sector, that meta that's happening right now. But will it kind of just fade out as, like, the overall markets kind of, you know, are struggling? And I get that, right? Like, you know, the markets are struggling, then, you know, the risk on stuff is going to struggle. But if there's revenue being generated, then that's a big deal, especially with AI, because I feel like AI has always just kind of been this like exciting thing when it comes to crypto, but hasn't really stepped up to the plate. But I feel like this is an opportunity for that. Agent Hustle and projects like that, I do think that they definitely are solid. But for the most part, if you go back to the Virtuals projects from before, I mean, what are they doing now, right? What are they doing now? Virtuals itself, still it has a platform, of course, because people are launching tokens on there. But outside of that, like, what about, remember AI XBT, like all of those type of projects? But yeah, I think that is going to wrap it up for today, guys. Definitely a fun show, even though, I wish the circumstances were better for the markets, but I appreciate all the support from you guys. Without you guys, definitely couldn't do this show. And I'm very, very appreciative for that, for you guys kind of, showing up and just giving me support as well, right? And we're going to learn together. We're going to, learn together and pay attention for whenever that narrative does come back and kind of pull us out of the Bitcoin ecosystem here. Trying to pull up something here. All right. Like I always mentioned, without you guys, I could not do this show, and I'm so appreciative for you guys. But also without my partners, you definitely couldn't do it, as they help support the show as well. So if you could check them out, if you're interested in getting that banner down there in the bottom corner, head over to pyro.buzz and you can bid for that banner. And then also check out Merlin Chain. Merlin Chain is uniting Bitcoin strength through the power of AI. They have staking for Bitcoin, staking Bitcoin to earn more Bitcoin on their website here. If you go there, it is a 3-month lockup period. They try to shoot for between 8 and 21%. Depending on the market, sometimes they can't hit that, but they have hit that the very first one. And so, you do get paid out in Bitcoin, as I always mention. And so that's definitely something to look at. And then also staking Merlin token as well. You can do a flexible day-to-day stake. You earn 15% APR for that. And then you can claim your rewards every single day for the Merlin Chain token staking. And then there is a bonded 6-month lockup period as well, to where you can earn 45% APR on those stakes, which are, pretty cool. But like the thing about the 6-month lockup period is that you can claim your rewards every single day for that one as well. So that's really awesome. The tokens are locked up for 6 months though. So just remember that. They also have their Agent Wizard version 2.0 that can guide you through Merlin Chain's ecosystem, as well as swap for tokens outside of the ecosystem. So head over to merlinchain.io, check them out. And then also, if you could head over to satsman.fun, they are the premier runes launchpad, meme coin launchpad. They utilize ICP's technology to scale and make the user experience much, much better. The speed is similarly to Solana whenever you're doing these things, but really simple. You just etch a token, then you deploy it and set it up for mint. Once it's minted, the liquidity gets sent over to RichSwap, which is their AMM, and people can start swapping for those tokens right away. They do have their Genesis tokens that are live right now with 7Z on RichSwap, as well as LandWolf, and you can check those out as well. But also check out OnChainRevolution.io, which is the website that we've created there. We have a daily blogs that we post about kind of market updates to get you guys caught up, as well as some links for you guys to save some money. If you need to get a VPN with NordVPN, you can use my link. It gives you guys a discount, as well as if you need some cold storage, there is a cold storage link there for you guys to purchase as well. But that is it, guys. And appreciate you guys for showing up like you do every single day. And until tomorrow, peace.